This story is set in Doubtful Sound, a very remote area in the South Island of New Zealand. It happened in late December 2000. It's a very dangerous area for just two people to be kayaking and camping alone in the wilderness. We had never done anything as difficult as this journey before. Listen to the very end of the story to see how our adventure turns out. It's based on actual events, but names have been changed. Let's begin. Danger in Doubtful Sound, New Zealand, December 2000. Probably the most dangerous sea kayaking trip I have taken was in Doubtful Sound, way down the south end of New Zealand in the year 2000. At least it was summer, December, just after Christmas, so I thought it can't be too cold. I was wrong. When Len and I arrived in Te Anau from Queenstown, we asked in a camping shop if anyone had some local knowledge about kayaking and camping in Doubtful Sound for 5 nights. You're kidding me. 5 days, you say? The old bloke down the back of the camping store said to us. You two won't last 24 hours down there on your own. Is there anything we should know about the area? Len asked him. Okay, seems like you're serious, the old man said. Firstly, there's no one down there. You are literally on your own, heading out from Deep Cove. There's only a couple of fishing boats at the other end of the sound, and that's several days paddling from your end. The only company you'll have is the biting black flies, so I can rent you an insect tent. The black flies are like sand flies, about the size of large gnats. You'll need to do all your cooking, changing and toilet in that tent, otherwise you'll be eaten alive. And make sure you're off the water by 3 p.m. each day. The wind whips up in the afternoon and it's not safe. We left the shop with a rented insect shelter, a map, and extra strong bug spray. We were going to need them all. The bus ride from Te Anau to the cove was bumpy and long. We didn't see another vehicle on the road. When the bus dropped us off at Deep Cove, there was no one else there, just an old wooden hut for hikers. We went into the hut and signed the walking track book to say we were planning to leave from Deep Cove today and return again in 5 days after our paddling and camping trip. It took 2 hours for us to assemble our expedition kayak from its big carry bag. There was a small area of rocks at the side of the water to do this. Len and I were pretty good at the assembly now. We had done it a few times before, on previous, less adventurous trips. We worked well together, quietly assembling the frame and pulling the waterproof skin over the frame and inflating the hull, floor and sides. Finally, we took off from the water's edge and it was already 2:30 in the afternoon. The old man's warning about the weather getting up after 3 p.m. is ringing in my ears. I could see once we were on the water the problems we would face. Fresh drinking water itself was not going to be a problem. There were waterfalls everywhere. Fresh, clear water was falling from all the vertical cliff faces. No, our problem was finding a beach or some low rocks where we could safely bring the kayak off the water and have enough flat land to camp for the night. The scenery was breathtaking. We paddled and paddled, but could not find a landing spot. Eventually, we saw it up ahead. As we brought the kayak into shore, the welcoming party came out to greet us. A huge swarm of biting black flies was approaching the boat. As soon as we made landfall, they were covering our bodies, trying to bite us. I realized it was essential to keep every part of my skin and head covered. We needed gloves, long sleeves, long trousers, thick socks and boots, woolen beanies, and insect nets completely covering our heads and faces. How was I going to go to the toilet, I thought. Thank goodness for that insect shelter. We assembled the insect tent and I could take it with me, covering me away along the small beach, and then dig my hole within it, and then my bare bottom would be protected from the biting black fly bites as I squatted within the insect tent. It was one of the most useful things on the trip. We couldn't have survived without it. We used it for cooking, eating, and changing. At night, once we were in our two-man sleeping tent, I thought it was hailing outside. It sounded like a constant beating down of hailstones on the tent all through the night. It lulled me off to sleep. It was actually the biting black flies hitting the tent all through the night. It was totally silent, apart from this sound. There were no bird noises, because there were no birds. Yes, that's right, no birds to eat the flies, so they had overrun the place. There were no native birds because they'd all been eaten by the introduced stoats and rats. No wonder no one is down here, I thought. After our visit in 2000, the New Zealand Department of Conservation introduced a program to trap the introduced predators like the rats and stoats. And since then, I'm told the native birds have been repopulated, and this has reduced the biting black fly problem down in New Zealand's south. Didn't help us, however, back in 2000. I was thrilled to get back on the water the next morning. We even got a send-off party from the black insects. They formed a large cloud that swarmed after us as we left the little beach. We stayed out on the water all day to avoid the flies. We could stop for lunch and toilet breaks out in the middle of the sound on small groups of rocks. No biting flies there. It was amazing. The weather was beautiful during the day, crisp and clear. I asked Len to carry me into the kayak each day after the first day because the water was so cold. On the first day, I got my feet wet and they literally froze and went numb, and I suffered from dreadful cramps in my feet and calves all that day. I found that if I could keep my feet dry, then this fate was subverted. Trouble found us on our third day out. It had gone past 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and the wind was picking up. We needed to get off the water. We couldn't find a place to land. Just steep cliffs and no beach or rocks. We tried to land on a clump of rocks, but they were sharp and jagged. We paddled back into the center of the deep sound. The water was very deep in Doubtful Sound and extremely cold. If we capsized, we would surely die. I had no doubt, due to the freezing water. Not only was there no one to save us, since any fishing vessels were kilometers away, but we would perish from hypothermia very quickly in these waters. I was contemplating these very ideas when we realized we had a leak in our inflated hull. The rocks had torn the fabric outer skin of the kayak. It was making a tiny hissing noise, and the kayak was slowly starting to sink. We had to get off the water immediately. We were able to paddle almost straight across to a cliff area and found a tiny amount of land to put the kayak up and onto for the night and erect our tent. We used the repair kit to fix our puncture under the protection of the insect shelter. It's time to head back to Deep Cove tomorrow, I said to Len. The near drowning experience was enough for me. It took us 2 days to get back to the cove and sign out on the hiking book. Back in Te Anau, we met the old man with the local knowledge again. "Well, I didn't think you two would last the 5 days," he said. "Yeah, I didn't think we would either, once we were out there," I replied. "The insect shelter was a lifesaver against those biting black flies," I said. When we checked into the local hostel for a hot shower that night, I saw my entire body was covered in red, raised, itchy, black fly bites. I just hadn't noticed any of them until now. That's the end of the story. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe by pressing the button. And my novel, with a collection of short stories, is available in paperback and ebook from Amazon. It's called 4 Ways to Die at Riverside Towers. Have a great day today, enjoying life with people that you love.